On today's show, we are ranking the top 5 players on the Louisville football team.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app, use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. And then there were 5. Final episode of my top 15 Louisville football player ranking series. Today we are revealing the top 5. I'm going to break down the battle for number 1. I'll tell you about 2 versatile defensive stars, and we'll begin this episode by discussing possibly the next great wide receiver 1 in Jeff Brohm's offense. Now, if this is the first time that you're tuning in to Locked On Louisville or tuning into this specific series, then I'll say that you can go back and check out the first 2 episodes in this 3-part series. On Friday of last week, I posted an episode that revealed the players ranked 15 through 11. Earlier this week, I had an episode where I revealed the players ranked 10 through 6. So we are ranking the top 5 today. I'm going to give you a refresher and remind you what the rankings are before we get into the top 5. And of course, these are my personal rankings, but number 15, Kason Henry. 14 is TJ Capers. 13, AJ Green. 12, Tyler Thompson. Number 11 is tight end Brody Foley. Counting down to number 10 is Kewan Brown. 9, QB1 Lincoln Keenholz. 8 is Stanquan Clark. Number 7, Lance Robinson. And number 6 is CB1 Tayon Holloway. Now, this is a series that I have conducted over the past 3 to 4 off seasons. And if you are an everydayer of the show, and you have been for the past couple of years, then you probably know that most of these series have been 5-part series where we talked about 3 players per episode. We changed it up this year and had 3 episodes talking about 5 players per show. I believe that, and I've said this countless times, I believe that overall this is the most talented roster that Jeff Brohm has ever had in his head coaching career on paper. So by default, this offseason's exercise was more difficult because of that. Like, there were some players that I left off, some honorable mentions, that I was just like, man, how can you leave this player off the list? But it's more so a testament to just how good this roster is. How good this roster is and the top-end talent that the roster has. So don't forget, and I'll remind you that there isn't one specific quote-unquote metric that automatically holds more weight than the others. The formula that I use is a combination of 4 different factors: talent, projected production, where a player ranks at his respective position in the conference and across the country, and overall impact for the Cardinals. And if you're looking at that final factor, overall impact, then I don't think that there's any way where you can not include Tre Richardson in the top 5. Number is wide receiver transfer Tre Richardson. The first reason for Richardson making the top 5 is because he's going to make an impact not only on offense, but also on special teams. I feel like that was something that I guess I really didn't realize when he committed, was just how dangerous he is as a return man. He returned 17 kickoffs last season for Vanderbilt and recorded 427 total yards in those 17 kickoff returns. Like, his 2025 season was good enough for Phil Steele to predict him to be a preseason All-American. He's a preseason All-American second-team selection. And according to Phil Steele and Athlon Sports, All-ACC preseason first-team kick returner. So I should clarify that the preseason All-American honors are for being a kick returner. But he's getting high praise as a wide receiver too. Preseason All-ACC second-team selection at wide receiver. So you talk about the impact and how that factors into this formula. Well, here you have your wide receiver one who also projects to be maybe the most dangerous return man in the conference. Tre Richardson has certainly looked the part in fall camp. He has been absolutely electric. Last season, he caught 46 passes for 806 yards and 7 touchdowns with the Commodores. However, I think it was pretty clear that the last portion of the season, like when November started, Richardson became Diego Pavia's go-to receiver. In the last 4 games that Richardson played, he recorded at least 75 receiving yards, 3 of those for over 100 yards. In all 4 of those games, found the end zone every single game. Against Auburn on November 8th, 3 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Versus Kentucky, the next game, 6 for 159 and 3 touchdowns. At Tennessee, in the final regular season game, 6 for 75 and a touchdown. In the ReliaQuest Bowl against a ranked Iowa team, 6 for 127 and a touchdown. So something happened to the point to where Richardson became Pavia's favorite target. And that stretch of games made up a good chunk of the overall production. And it makes you feel encouraged about that skill set translated to the ACC. Tre Richardson is one of the most explosive receivers in the country. Was clocked in, I believe, at over 21 miles an hour last season. During his JUCO days, there was a report that he ran a 10.33 100-yard dash. For those who don't know, that is exceptional. That's elite level speed. I think he is the fastest receiver to play for Louisville since Tyler Harrell and Tutu Atwell before that. But I think that Richardson is more dynamic than Harrell. He will be Louisville's best vertical threat that the Cardinals have had since Tutu Atwell, a player that can take the top off the defense. You have to know where this guy is at all times because he can make a house call on any play. Last year, he averaged 17.5 yards per catch. That was good for top 30 in the country, basically top 10 in the SEC. 17.5 yards per catch. Now, a couple of, actually, most of the games wasn't really on high volume, but you have to understand that Vanderbilt's offense was kind of centered around Diego Pavia creating magic, whether it's running the football, scrambling. There were some other targets in that offense, some other options like Eli Stowers and some other players. So Richardson is going to come to Louisville and assume that wide receiver one role that has been very good to select amount of receivers since Brom has taken over. Jamari Thrash in 23, Brooks in 24, Bell in 25, Richardson in 2026. Now, this season might be a little bit different because Florida State transfer LaWayne McCoy is going to factor into the equation more. He's going to get his fair share of targets, not to mention Louisville's going to run the football. You have a mobile quarterback for the first time since Brom got here. So maybe some of those targets aren't there that Brooks and Bell got a season ago. But if Kienholz can consistently get Tre the football, the ball is going to be in Richardson's hands. The 5'10", 175-pound receiver from Topeka, Kansas, has, like I mentioned, looked the part in fall camp. He's been virtually unguardable, has shown that big play ability at various points in various practices. And, of course, the speed gets mentioned. But something that was highlighted by multiple people over and over to me, people that were there at fall camp, was just how quick Richardson was, how elite his change of pace is. He's able to accelerate and decelerate on a dime, stop on a dime, get up to full speed and explode off the line of scrimmage, and doesn't need a lot of time to get that top speed. So I can only imagine stepping into a Jeff Brom offense that will allow you the freedom to be Superman, but it's not requiring you to be Superman. But Richardson is top 5 on my rankings because of the impact, right? Impact on offense and special teams. B, the talent, one of the fastest and most explosive players in maybe not only the ACC, but the country. Projected production, 800 yards last year at Vanderbilt. I think that if Kienholz can get him the football consistently, if Richardson can stay healthy, you're looking at a player that can eclipse that 1,000-yard mark. And then where he would rank in the conference and across the country, second team preseason all ACC wide receiver. I think first team is not out of the realm of possibility at all for not only Richardson, but the other 4 on this list. But when we come back, we're going to reveal the players ranked 4 and 3. Both of those players are versatile defensive stars. We'll tell you who they are when we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Before season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? Well, on KALSHI, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Can Indianapolis win at least 8 games this season? The Colts are currently trading at 60%, meaning that a $100 trade pays out $162.12 if the Colts reach 8 wins. On KALSHI, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft pick, the game, and more on KALSHI. Download the KALSHI app, use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, KALSHI, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. KALSHI products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment in the YouTube section below. Both are great ways to help this show continue to grow. We just told you who number 5 is in my top 15 Louisville football player rankings. That is Tre Richardson, wide receiver 1. Number 4, and I'll be honest, I kind of went back and forth on number 3 and number 4, but both are elite players. Number 4 is perhaps my favorite player on the team, the most overlooked player by the national media. But if you're a diehard of the Louisville Cardinals, this will not shock you. Honestly, this is a player that you probably appreciate a lot. Might be your favorite player. A player whose impact is much greater than the box score and the numbers would suggest. That player is linebacker Antonio Watts. When you look at the stats, they might not jump off the page. Like the production might not scream top 5 player on this really good team, but I'll argue that they are a reason. Because look at last year. Antonio Watts had 42 tackles. Now, he missed 3 games because of injury. He had 42 tackles, which was 9 less than his career high, which he set in 2024 with 51. But he had 3 passes deflected. He had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, 6.5 tackles for loss. So maybe the tackle numbers weren't there, but all across the board, fumbles, interceptions, like he calls turnovers, he got into the opposing backfield, not to mention the insane versatility. He's probably Louisville's most versatile player. But Antonio Watts is a star, no pun intended, because he does play the star position. He's going to start at that outside linebacker hybrid spot like he did last year, the linebacker that will either play close to the line of scrimmage, play in coverage, you name it. He's all over the field. Antonio Watts will play on Sundays. He will have a solid NFL career. And the fact that the Cardinals were able to retain him this past offseason, and he announced his intention to enter the portal, decided to take that back and return to Louisville. We don't talk enough about how huge of a victory that is for this defense. Antonio Watts is one of the leaders of this defense. He was an all-ACC honorable mention a season ago. He can be used anywhere on the field. Like last season, he was used as an outside linebacker. He was used in the slot. He was used as the deep safety. He was supporting the edge rushers at the line of scrimmage. Ron English used him everywhere on the defense. You can assume that Mark Ivey and Steve Ellis are probably going to do the same thing. You can use Antonio Watts in any level of the defense, and at the very worst, he's going to be serviceable. He does such a great job of reading the offense, and that allows him to be in the position at the right times more often than not, whether it's in coverage in zone or if he's guessing the right gap and defending the run. I mean, 6'2", 225 pounds. The versatility is the main reason why he's on this list for me. I think he's going to be an all-ACC first-team guy in 2026. Antonio Watts is a star. Again, no pun intended, but he's my favorite player on the team because he does everything you ask him to do at a very high level and doesn't get maybe even half the recognition he should. Now, the diehards know. The diehards that watch every game and, you can sort of use the box score as a reference, but you know what you saw. And what you usually see is Antonio Watts making plays. But I would also argue that you can tell when he's not on the field as well. He makes such a huge impact, and that's why he is landing at number 4 in my top 15 player rankings. And it wasn't easy to not put him at number 3. Number 3, I went with Iowa safety transfer Koen Entringer. Koen Entringer, 6'2", 215 pounds, projected preseason all-ACC first-team selection, was an all-Big Ten honorable mention a season ago, one of the best strong safeties in the Big Ten. And I think that he projects to be one of the best safeties in the entire ACC. And the reason why I give him the edge over Watts in this specific situation is I think there's a little bit of an easier path for Koen to be a first-team all-ACC safety than there is for Antonio to be a first-team all-ACC linebacker, because stats matter so much when when overall decisions, watch lists, awards are given out, all conference teams are recognized. And I think that Koen, who had a breakout season last year, he had 73 tackles for Iowa, 4 passes deflected, 1 forced fumble, also recorded 3.5 tackles for loss. I think Koen is going to be one of the best players on this Louisville defense and the Louisville team in general. Louisville's coaching staff mentioned that Koen Entringer immediately stepped into that leadership role right when he stepped foot onto campus. Like right when spring practice started, Entringer solidified himself as one of the leaders of this team, and that impact is being felt. The coaching staff has highlighted that. So you have one of your captains, I think you have one of your leaders on the defense. He was the permanent captain of the Iowa Hawkeyes last year. Let me repeat that. Koen Entringer was a captain for every single game. He was a permanent team captain for the Iowa Hawkeyes defense that is perennially known to be one of the best defenses in the country. Koen Entringer was good enough to not only be the captain, but he started all 13 games at strong safety and was good enough to the point to where he was recognized as an all Big Ten honorable mention. Is that skill set going to translate to the ACC? I believe so. 100%. I think that this could be a huge season for Koen. I think that he has been as good as advertised in fall camp. He's going to be elite. And I don't like to throw that word around because it gets watered down. But I believe that the three players that we've talked about up to this point are going to be elite. But let's talk about the battle for number one. You know who the two players are. And I'll be honest with you. The answer wasn't obvious. Like, I went truly back and forth trying to decide Clev Lubin or Isaac Brown. Well, I came to a decision. I'll tell you who number one is when we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. And then there were two. I keep reminding myself, and look, I feel like a broken record here when I say how talented this team is. But when you actually look at the top 15 player rankings and you talk about all these players in depth in one series, it just reminds you, it's like, okay, you're not just going crazy. You're not just delivering a hot take. Like, there is legitimate reason to believe that this team is super talented. Well, you knew who the top two players were going to be, but did you know the order? Because some people that I've talked to have said Isaac Brown, and others that I've talked to have said Clev Lubin. Now, considering my formula that combines talent, projected production, where a player ranks in the ACC and in the country, and impact for the Cardinals, let's kind of go down the line. Both players are very talented. Both players are very talented. I think Clev is more of that vocal leader for the Cardinals, especially for the defense. And there are some questions about Isaac Brown's durability. Now, some positive news out of fall camp is that Isaac Brown seems like he's going to be 100% for that first game. That, of course, seems like what's going to happen. But Isaac Brown did miss a portion of the season last year due to injury. So with the best ability being availability, you do have to keep that in mind. And I did consider that. I considered Clev's leadership, and I considered Isaac Brown's durability. But Isaac is ranked number one on my top 15 players ranking list for the second straight season. Now, I'll tell you why, but first we got to hype Clev Lubin up. Being able to get Clev Lubin to return after the season he had last year, where he was third team all ACC. The 6'3", 260-pound edge rusher was fourth in the conference in sacks with 8.5. That was good for 25th nationally. He was also ranked 7th in the ACC with 13.5 tackles for loss. Like, Clev Lubin was the leader of this defense, both vocally and by example. You saw him just make winning plays over and over. That James Madison game, it seemed like he won this game by himself in the second half. 10 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. And then you look at the game against Kentucky where he had 2 sacks, 1.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles against Toledo. He had a sack against Clemson, 10 sacks against Cal. I think that there is a need for him to maybe perform at a higher level against some of the best teams on the schedule. I'm not saying that he hasn't played at a high level. I'm saying from a productivity standpoint. He had 3 tackles against Miami. He had 1 at Virginia Tech, 2 at SMU. There were some games where he completely took over, and I know that quarterback pressures don't get the hype they deserve, but projected production is a category that I'm taking into consideration. So I do think that Clev Lubin gets to double-digit sacks in 2026. Will he force over 3 fumbles like he did last season? I think he's at least going to match that number. So even though I said you might want him to perform or be more productive in the top matchups of the season, it's not like he was bad in those matchups at all. If you're just trying to split hairs between the number 1 overall player on the team and the number 2 overall player, again, you're finding just the slightest difference, the smallest difference. Clev is all ACC first team selection, potential All-American, depending on which publication you look at. So I think that Clev Lubin has a legitimate case to make to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. This is his second season in the ACC, another year of experience in this conference. That's going to help out. I think this is going to be a huge, gigantic season for Clev Lubin, who ranks at number 2. Number 1 is IB. Isaac Brown coming back to the Cards. Originally announced that he was intending on entering the portal. A couple days later, shout out to Big Dog, Vince Morrow and company. They're able to get Isaac Brown to return for his 3rd season. And look, I know that he got hurt in early November last year. And when you look at the overall numbers, he carried the ball 64 less times and had 4 less rushing touchdowns. He had 101 carries for 884 yards and 7 touchdowns. However, his yards per carry number went up almost 2 full yards. He went from 7.1 as a true freshman in 2024, his freshman All-American season, to 8.8. He led the country in yards per carry for players that carried the ball over 50 times in 2025. Now, I will just be honest here. I saw the Doak Walker watch list. The ACC tweeted out 12 names, and Isaac Brown and Kewan Brown wasn't on the list. I'm giving it some time and hoping that it was a mistake and or a typo, because I have a hard time believing that the player who led the country in yards per carry last season, who has made multiple preseason watch lists for the best player in the country, preseason All-American teams, first team preseason All-ACC running back, how's he not in the conversation or on the watch list of the 60 names for the best running back in the country? Like, somebody made a mistake. Somebody made a mistake, and I'm giving it some time and hoping that it was a typo, because if not, you best believe we're going to talk about it. But Isaac Brown is a player that I think you give the nod to at the number 1 spot over Clev, because I think the ceiling is higher for Isaac Brown. I think that there is a potential for him to rank higher at his position nationally than Clev would at his position nationally. Isaac Brown is being talked about as one of the top 5 best running backs in the country, maybe even top 4. And I think that the ceiling is a little bit higher, and there's a very real possibility that he can get there. But he's a player that can change an entire game by himself. And there aren't that many players in college football. Like, well, let me clarify. Certain great elite level players can change a game any given Saturday, but there are only a select few that can consistently, every time they step foot on the field, can change a game. Isaac Brown is one of those players. I mean, look at the past 2 seasons for the Cardinals, right? As a freshman, in that game against SMU, he had 10 for 117, 5 for 44 receiving. Virginia, 20 for 146 and 2 touchdowns. Do you win that game without Isaac Brown? Probably not. 20 for 151 and a touchdown against Clemson on the road. Do you win that game if you don't have IB? Probably not. 26 for 178 and 2 touchdowns against Kentucky. You probably win that game without Isaac Brown, but you understand what I'm saying here. You look at 2025, 12 for 104 and a touchdown. If not for Isaac Brown breaking through in the second half of that game and getting that long touchdown, there's a chance you might not win that game. 15 for 113 at Miami. 14 for 205 and a touchdown against Boston College. 16 for 130 and a touchdown at Virginia Tech. In the Boca Raton Bowl, 10 for 102 and 2 touchdowns against Toledo. Isaac Brown is one of the best running backs in the country. He is the best running back in the ACC. He is a guy that can single-handedly win you a game on your schedule. Multiple games on your schedule. That's why I have Isaac Brown for the second straight season ranked number 1 in my Louisville Football top 15 player rankings. Let me read you the top 15 player rankings in its entirety. Sorry. Number 15, Kason Henry. Number 14, TJ Capers. 13 is AJ Green. 12, Tyler Thompson. Number 11, tight end Brody Foley. Counting down to number 10, Kewan Brown. 9, QB1, Lincoln Keenholtz. Number 8 is Stanquan Clark. Number 7, Lance Robinson. Number 6, Tayon Holloway. Number 5, wide receiver 1, Tre Richardson. Antonio Watts sits at number 4. Koen Entringer, the Iowa safety transfer, at number 3. Star edge rusher Clev Lubin, number 2. And number 1 is Isaac Brown. Let me know who I didn't include on this list that you would have. Let me know who you think is higher on my list that would be a little bit lower on your list, and vice versa, in the YouTube comments below. But that's going to wrap up this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here very soon. Go Cards.